This fire looks impossible. One flaming log just balanced on top of another, but it works. It's known as a Finnish gap fire or a Rakovalkea, and it will burn like this all night long with no tending. A row of hot coals that'll keep you warm on the coldest of nights. Let's have a look at the story behind these things. I'll show you how to make one yourself. The Finnish gap fire, or Rakovalkea, is an ancient fire technique, and like the Swedish torch, it originates from the cold Nordic winters of Northern Europe. It was the fire of the traveller, the hunter, the woodsman, anyone who had to survive a snowy Nordic night with only what the forest could offer. After trudging through snow all day, you could simply find a dead tree and make a fire that would burn with a steady heat all night long. No tending required. Its origins are lost in the mists of time, but it has been in use for thousands of years, long before written records. Those forests look much like this, with conifer trees and birch trees covering the land. Now, trees that are alive and growing are much too wet to burn, but with a bit of searching we can find some windblown trees or standing dead trees that would be perfect for a Rakovalkea. Trees that are dead but still standing, like this one, can stay wet inside for quite some time. Capillary action will continue to draw water up even after they've died. That does eventually stop, and after a while, the tree becomes bone dry inside, even in damp climates, like here in northern England. When you're out collecting your wood for your fire, you're also going to want to collect some tinder and some fire lighters. Now for fire lighters, we're going to use this stuff. It is tree resin, and conifers ooze it out of wounds. It's a bit like a bandage to protect them while they heal, but it's incredibly flammable. Now you can scrape it off with a knife and store it. It basically lasts forever. I mean, amber is fossilized tree resin after all, so it'll last longer than we will. So for tinder, we're going to pick up loads of these dry pine needles from the ground. When they're dry, they burn beautifully well, and also loads of these little sticks. Now you can tell if they're dry just by breaking them. If they make a nice snapping noise, you know they're good to go. But today we're going to collect this windblown tree. It's been here for several years, so it'll be nice and dry inside. As long as the tree's up off the ground, it'll dry out and not absorb much water even when it rains. It'll be nice and dry inside. This is exactly what they would have been looking for to make the Rakovalkea. The ideal size for your tree is about 8 inches in diameter. It's easy enough to move around, and also as a general rule of thumb, a Rakovalkea will burn at about 1 inch per hour. Now this tree is about 6 inches in diameter, so it'll be perfect for our demonstration. The ideal length for your logs for your Rakovalkea is as long as you are. That way when you're lying down, it will heat your entire body. So for me, it's right here. Right, so we're all set up to make this fire, but before we do, if you're enjoying this video, do please hit like and subscribe. Hazel would appreciate it, wouldn't you? You can also join us on our Patreon. We have some exclusive content there, as well as notifications of upcoming videos that I think you'd like. Right, we're just about ready to get this fire lit. There's a little more prep we need to do. We've already got our kindling and our logs cut to size. We're going to need a couple of fresh green sticks as well. I'll show you how they feature in just a moment. It can also be very helpful if you use an axe to cut a flat face onto each of the logs. It makes the fire more stable, which I'll demonstrate in a couple of minutes, but more importantly, it actually gives somewhere for the kindling to sit. Otherwise, it has a tendency to just roll off the log. You can actually cut a bit of a trough shape into the bottom log to hold on to the kindling. It also means that you have two flat faces against each other, trapping the heat, which helps the fire get going more quickly. So we've got our logs flattened. We also need some way to hold them steady. Having flaming logs rolling on your campsite isn't a good look. Now, if you have soft ground like sand or like our ground, you can make a bit of a depression that'll hold the log steady. But there's a couple of other ways I can show you that involve using some fresh green wood. So let's go copper some willow. But if your ground is frozen or very hard, you can't really make a depression in it, so that's where this fresh green wood comes in. You simply cut a notch in your bottom log like so, put your green wood on the ground, and it'll hold it steady. Or if you have lots of large rocks around, you can place them on either side of the bottom log, and that will hold it steady too. So, to keep the top log from rolling off, it is traditional to use 4 spikes like so. I made a point on the end with my axe, and then you drive them in the ground in pairs on either end of the fire. That keeps the whole thing very stable. So if for whatever reason you can't drive stakes into your ground because the ground is frozen or perhaps it's stony, there is another technique for locking that top log in position. You get yourself a long stick like so and a longish nail. You drive the nail into the top log through the stick, and the weight of that stick will pin the top log into position. Just make sure that you retrieve the nail the next day. Having a piece of wood with a nail sticking out of it can be kind of a dangerous thing. Somebody might stand on it and get a nail in their foot. I've done it twice. I don't recommend it. But because our ground is soft enough, we're going to use this technique with stakes in the ground because it is a bit safer than this technique. So that's our 4 uprights in position. We can lay out the resin and the kindling we collected earlier. Right, so here's the real secret behind the Finnish gap fire, the gap. If you put this log on top of that one and try to burn it, the fire would have nowhere to be. It would just smolder and go out. What you need is a way to keep the 2 logs just the right distance away from each other, and you do that with a couple of fresh green bits of wood like this. What you want is something that's about the size of your thumb, 3/4 of an inch, couple of centimeters in diameter, and you place it just like so, one on either side, about 1 foot 30 centimeters in. Now you will have fire on both sides, but because it is fresh green wood, it's about 50% water, it'll resist burning and help maintain the correct gap. Now you could create some wedges and use those so you can adjust them as you go. I mentioned earlier about having the flat faces on the wood providing more stability. This is much more stable than if we left the logs round, so it's well worth putting in the effort to have a safe fire. All right, now the fun bit, light it on fire. And make sure this is safe to do where you are. Here in the north of England in winter, wildfire is not a concern. In the winter, everything's wet, and for some of the summer as well. But where I grew up in Texas, wildfire was a serious risk, so give it some thought. Now, the ideal log for a Rakovalkea is a long straight log with very few knots in it. Now a knot is simply where a branch goes through the rest of the trunk. Now they have lots of dense, strong fibers to hold the branch in place, and it burns more slowly because of that. That sounds like a great thing, but actually can cause problems. The rest of the trunk will burn more quickly, and the gap then between the 2 flaming faces gets too wide and the whole thing can smolder and go out. Now if you're burning what we're burning, which is larch, they tend to have these sections of branches called whorls. They grow one each year. So you can do that. You just have to keep an eye on the fire and adjust it as you go. Or you could just cut the section in between those whorls and use that instead. Now some conifer trees have very few branches low down on the trunks. Spruce is an example of that. Now you can also use hardwood. It tends to have very few branches low down on the trunk as well. So that'll make a fantastic Rakovalkea. Now back in the day, people who knew all these tips and tricks would have been in very high demand on a campsite. You might have noticed from my other videos I have a real fondness for axes. I even got one as a wedding present from my brother. So when Beavercraft offered me this axe to review, I couldn't resist, and it is a fantastic axe. It is a felling axe. The style is known as a bearded axe because there's no metal here. Now this means it's lighter, but it also gives you a lot more control because you can put your hand here behind the cutting edge, which is really useful for close work like crafting. Now the handle is made of ash, which is an interesting change from hickory or the synthetic handles you often get on axes. Now one problem with axes with wooden handles is they normally come coated in some kind of varnish, which looks nice, it's all very shiny, but when it gets wet, the axe handle gets very slippery, which isn't safe at all. Now normally I use a card scraper to remove that varnish and apply something more suitable like Danish oil. I didn't have to do that with this axe. It came with a lovely finish already on it. It's a mixture of linseed oil and beeswax, and it feels really nice and does not get slippery when it gets wet. That is a very thoughtful touch. This axe came from the factory with a good edge on it, suitable for felling small trees. But as I wanted to use it for crafting work as well, I did regrind the bevel a bit and put a nice sharp edge on it. This axe does take a very nice edge. Now I noticed that the handle is a bit shorter than a full-sized felling axe. This is my splitting axe, but it does have a standard length handle. Now this can actually be a real bonus depending on your particular use case because it makes it much more portable. For us, it means we can easily carry around our small holding to do the odd jobs. Now it also comes with a leather sheath and a carry strap, which means you can carry it around hands-free, which is also a very nice touch. Now, as a bonus point, this axe is made in Ukraine, and I'm very happy to be supporting Ukraine, particularly at the moment. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can go and pick one up for yourself. Now, for full disclosure, I do get 10% if you buy one through my link, but even if not, what a great axe. So there you go, another fantastic fire developed for a very particular reason. Staying warm in freezing conditions, being able to cook, what a wonderful thing. Thank you for watching.